Hi friends, Pastor Jack here, and as you can see from the photos, the church is ready for Advent. We've got the decorations up, the nativities, decorated the sanctuary and the exterior of the church, and we're looking forward to Advent. We're going to be looking at the 4 traditional themes during Advent this year, which is hope, love, joy, and peace. And I'm going to share with you for a few minutes about hope, which is what I shared this past Sunday. And so, as we begin to take a look at that, we will begin to look at the dissolution of hope. And so, yes, that's what we're going to be taking a look at, is the dissolution of hope. Now, you might be asking yourself the question, why are we talking about doing away with hope at the beginning of Advent? Aren't we supposed to have hope? And yes, you are right, and we will get to it. So just stick with me for a few minutes, because yes, we are in fact supposed to have hope. But when, first of all, when we begin to look at it, at hope, all of us have experienced, either as a parent or a child, asking that big question on a trip, are we there yet? So are we there yet? How much longer do we have? How much longer is it going to take? Are we closer? Are we almost there? Questions like that. Those are things and questions that all of us, we've either asked that or we have been asked that question. Are we there yet? You see, because that question brings with it an anticipation, because we're wanting to get somewhere. We are hoping that the place that we're going to is closer, that it's not going to take much longer, that we're almost there, and we keep hoping that it's just going to be around the corner. It's just going to be a few more minutes. And so we keep hoping with that, don't we? Well, let's go. The Hebrews had several words that they used that were translated hope. They had yakal, which is translated hope. They had tikva, which is translated hope, and kavah, which was translated hope. Kavah is kind of from tikva there together, but those words also had other meanings as well, such as waiting and watching and expecting. And so with that, we see that there, along with hope, at least in the Hebrew understanding, with hope there is this waiting, there's this watching, this expectation that comes right along with hope, right? Because you no longer hope for something when you have it. Do you get it? That once you hope for that phone call, you hope that they will call. You hope that they will text. You hope that they will contact you. Someone special will contact you. Well, you keep hoping and expecting and waiting, anticipating that. But when they call, you no longer hope. You no longer hope for the call because you've received the call. You've received the contact. And so you don't hope for it anymore because it's happened. What you have hoped for has arrived. Are you there yet? Yes, you're there. You've arrived. So there's this expectation, and you might see up there with some of the definitions of these words, waiting and watching and expecting, you see cord. You see, with the cord, and the meaning behind that seems to be, is that with a cord, once it's stretched, there's tension on it. And with hope, there's always this tension. There's always seems to be this tension and anticipation with the chord, and then once you get there, it's released. Right? You no longer, again, you've arrived. You no longer have that. And so as we begin to take a look at that today, let's go to Isaiah chapter 7 and verse 14. It's the NIV version. It says, "Therefore the Lord himself will give you a sign. The virgin will be with child and will give birth to a son, and will call him Emmanuel." Now, Emmanuel is a verb. It's a Hebrew verb, and we put this proper name to it, Emmanuel. But what it literally means, and what Matthew, certainly he even translates it, God with us. God with us. Now, in the Gospel of Matthew, he translates this verse, or he translates it, but he interprets this verse as with the birth of Jesus, right? And we understand that as followers of Christ, and we get the prophecy and all of that, and we know that Jesus is Emmanuel, God with us, the incarnation, and all of that is all wrapped up right in there. But the prophet Isaiah at the time didn't necessarily see all of that. What he was getting at was a time frame, that by the time this virgin, a girl who is a virgin now, gives birth to a child, some things will come to pass. It was more of a time frame comment and connection there. But of course, Matthew understands with the birth of Jesus and all that was going on there, he understands that with Jesus being born, we have Emmanuel, we have God with us in Jesus Christ. And so it's a beautiful, beautiful thing. And we understand that, of course. But along with that, not even with the prophet Isaiah and his message then in its historical context, but for us today and for them at the time of Jesus, what it all surrounds, what surrounds all of it is hope. Hope. Hope that God is fulfilling his promise. Hope that God is doing what God said he would do. And we see that in the birth story. We see it in the life, the ministry, the death, the resurrection of Jesus. We see all of that. Well, let's go back here, or let's move forward. Again, we talk about these two views of Advent. There are two things going on in Advent, two things that we're looking at. Perspectives that we're looking at. One, of course, Advent calendars and everything else, we look, to the birth of Christ, Christmas Day. That's one thing we look at. The other thing, the other view that is for us in Advent is that we look forward to the second coming of Christ. And so we have two things going on. One, we are looking behind us in the past to the birth of Christ. So we see that in the rearview mirror. But in front of us, somewhere down the road, is the return of Christ, the second coming. And so we still ask the question, are we there yet? So we have the birth of Christ behind us that we look at, right? We keep that in view, and in our rearview mirror, we see that, but we're constantly moving toward the second coming, the return of Christ. And so we have these two views in Advent that we look at, that we look behind us at the birth, we look in front of us forward, and we don't know how much longer that's going to be. People disagree on that all the time, don't they? I mean, for 2,000 years, even in the Bible, even in Paul in 1 Thessalonians, right? He begins to write, those of us who are still alive will be caught up with them. So the return of Christ was, right, understood even with the biblical writers as it being something that could be at any time. And so we see that there's always this anticipation, this hope that it could be any moment. So we look forward to the return of Christ. And with Advent, we look behind us and we look in front of us. Well, when we talk about hope, when we look at hope, it always seems to be for the benefit of the one hoping. Right? You never hope for something that is going to result in something negative happening to you. You know, we never hope for anything like that. Everything we hope for, in some way or another, has a benefit to us. Everything that we hope for. You don't hope for anything that's going to be negative to you. You don't hope for anything that's going to hurt you. Now, it doesn't mean that you're not going to hope that something negative or something painful happens to somebody else. Right? You can hope for that. But you're not going to hope for something that's going to be negative to you. And we even see that type of thing about hoping that something negative happens to somebody else. We see that even in the Psalms. They're called the imprecatory Psalms, right? That David writes and about, asking God to curse his enemies and to punish his enemies and to make them miserable in a way, right? So we do hope. I'm not saying that's right, but sometimes we may hope that negative things happen to somebody else, but we never hope that something negative will happen to us. What happens when we lose hope? Let's take a look at that for a minute. When we lose hope, right, we begin to have apathy instead of concern. We become passive instead of active, and we may even experience anxiety and depression instead of peace. And so when we lose hope, right, when we don't have anything to look forward to, and there's nothing in front of us that we can see to be hopeful for, then it can be devastating to us, and our life can make life miserable. Unfortunately, a lot of people who have committed suicide see nothing left in life, or they have nothing to hope for. They have nothing that they hope in. Hope is lost. And so living is worthless for a lot of people. But again, let's look at Advent and the coming of Christ gives us hope that we do have something to hope in. We do have someone to hope in. We have something to hope for. And it's because of God's love for us. So we do have hope. We have hope because of what God has done in the birth of Christ. So we look back, and we have hope in that because of that. And we have hope in front of us that God was faithful then, and God will be faithful again in the second coming, whenever that is. Are we there yet? No, we are not there yet. All of us are in the car, and none of us are in the driver's seat. You are not in the driver's seat. I am not in the driver's seat. We are all asking the question, are we there yet? Because we do not know when we will get there. Much like Abraham, when God told Abraham to leave, right? To leave his family, leave his country, leave everything that he had, everything that he knew, and to go to a place that God was going to show him. He didn't tell Abraham where he was going. He just said, follow me. And as followers of Christ, that's what we do. We follow. Are we there yet? Are we there yet? No, we're not there yet. We are not there yet. But we're on the way. So you're not in the driver's seat. I'm not in the driver's seat. We just follow. We follow with hope and anticipation, waiting and expecting. And that's what Advent is all about. Advent is about the coming, and we wait. We wait. Hebrews. In Hebrews, we find in chapter 6, verse 19, says, hope anchors the soul. Isn't that beautiful? Hope anchors the soul, because once again, once we lose hope, once we lose hope, we are just at the mercy of everything around us. We're at the mercy of culture. We're at the mercy of everyone else telling us what we should and shouldn't do and everything else. But that's hope anchors us. Hope keeps us steady in the midst of all of our trouble, in the midst of all of our pain, in the midst of all of our success, in the midst of all that we achieve. Hope anchors us. Again, we're looking back, we're looking forward. Hope anchors us. So once again, let me just kind of share this quickly with you. Are we there yet? We look back in order to look forward, and we look forward with hope. Yes, we do. In Revelation, chapter 21, verse 4 says, he will wipe away every tear from their eyes, and death shall be no more. Neither shall there be mourning, nor crying, nor pain any more, for the former things have passed away. Do you know what that sounds like to me? When all of that is done away with, the pain, the mourning, the crying, all of that is done away with. Do you know what that sounds like to me? It sounds like a world and a place, an experience for which hope has no reason for being there. Why? Because we've asked that question, are we there yet? Well, because we've arrived. We have arrived at the place where hope is dissolved. We arrive at the place where hope has no meaning. There's no longer any need for hope because we're there. No pain, no mourning, no crying. We're there. We're home. And it will be at that point, my friends, at that point, that hope will be dissolved. It will be the dissolution of hope. There will be a day when hope will be a thing of the past and it will no longer be needed. But until then, we keep hoping. We keep hoping. We keep praying. We keep waiting. We keep expecting. But one day, my friends, one day, hope will be over. But until then, we hope. Well, I want to thank you for being with us. Thank you for hanging out with me for a few minutes. Next week, we're going to take a look at love. God bless you. Have a wonderful Advent and keep hoping.